Welcome to Real World, Real Talk with Dr. D.Z. Cofield. The show represents captivating conversations and insightful information to encourage and inspire you with all you need to become the best you can possibly be. And now, your host for Real World, Real Talk, Dr. D.Z. Cofield.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Real World, Real Talk. I'm your host, Dr. D.Z. Cofield, Senior Pastor of the Good Hope Missionary Baptist Church, and I'm privileged to be with you on this, the first Sunday evening of the new year, January 3rd. So if I haven't seen you already, Happy New Year, man. I know you were ready to let 2020 stay in the past. Well, I hope that you are ready to do something different in 2021. One of the challenges I think that we face, and I know I face it personally, is to make sure that you don't allow what you have gone through to adversely affect you and to cause you to lose control of what you can control. And that is your reaction. That is your response. There are a lot of things that go on around us that we quite honestly have no control over. But the question is, what do we do with what we can control? How do we respond to situations and circumstances, and how do we make the best out of those proverbial bad situations? And so, man, I'm excited about 2021. I don't know about you. I'm looking forward to it. And it has nothing to do with a COVID vaccine. It has nothing to do with who's in the White House. It really, really doesn't. I'm excited about 2021 because I believe that God has some great things in store for us if we're willing to make the shifts and changes that we need to make and walk in our purpose, walk in who we have really been designed to be and to fulfill our potential. So I'm really excited about this year, and I'm excited about this show, man. I've got a lovely lady on with us today who is absolutely brilliant and is going to share some things with you. If you listen to KTSU, you hear a voice. For those of you who are part of the Real World, Real Talk podcast network, you'll get a chance to see her face on tonight. And that's none other than my friend, Sister Alfredia Lee. She is going to share with us on tonight, and I'll introduce her in just a moment. But you need to get ready. If you want to change your life, man, this is going to be the show for you. If you know somebody who needs to change their life, just call them and say, listen, you need to listen to Real World, Real Talk tonight. 90.9 on the FM dial in the Houston metropolitan area, or ktsuradio.com anywhere in the world. And you can also follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter at DZ Cofield. You can also catch our podcast on YouTube as well. You don't want to miss tonight. Man, some things are going on. We see, of course, the COVID-19 vaccines being distributed. They've run into some hiccups now, run into some issues in terms of distributing it. So we're not going to get to the numbers that they expected to get to by the first of the year. They're doing the best that they can. But listen, we all knew whatever can go wrong will go wrong, right? And so, they were looking at making sure everything was distributed out, and, that everyone would receive vaccines by the second, third quarter of 2021. I don't think we're going to make that. I think it's a great goal, but we just have to be patient. In the meanwhile, wash your hands, physically distance yourself, wear your mask, stay away from large groups and large gatherings. I was asked by one of the members of our church if we were coming back the first of the year. And I said, no, we're still waiting. Our COVID task force inside the church, that's made up of doctors and nurses, have all agreed that, we're going to continue to wait as we have a lot of members who have underlying health conditions. And we're seeing surges now within surges and as people are traveling all over the place. Man, this is just not the time to get out there and jump out there. That's just my opinion. All right. But you govern yourselves accordingly. Let me take this opportunity to introduce Sister Alfredia Lee. Alfredia D. Lee is an author, counselor, lecturer, and dynamic, inspirational, motivational speaker, well known as the Great Coach. She is a native Houstonian, married to Pastor L.D. Lee Sr., and the mother of three. Educating, teaching, and training the mind is one of her greatest passions and assets. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communication from Texas Southern University, teacher's certification from University of St. Thomas, and a master's in counseling from Prairie View A&M University. For over 20 years, she taught in the Houston and Fort Bend ISDs. As a leader and trendsetter within her community, she is a contributor to KTSU 90.9, this radio station, where she inspires thousands of listeners every day. She has become one of the most highly sought out lecturers by companies, organizations, churches, schools, and universities. One of Alfredia's greatest strengths is to pull the average mindset to great. Her audience leaves her sessions hungry for greatness within you. She has penned 2 books, her highly inspirational book, Be Great, and encouraging children's book, Great Me, strongly focusing on encouraging individuals to have a mindset above average in every aspect of life. To her credit, she has had the esteemed honor of being featured as an author at the Congressional Annual Legislative Conference alongside many other great authors, including Judge Greg Mathis and Ayanna Van Zant, among others. She partners today with the Alvin Independent School District and the Houston Independent School District, where she provides training to both staff and students, challenging them through comprehensive lessons and engaging instruction that leads them to living a life and career above average. She is the Great Coach, ready, willing, and available. Join me in welcoming to Real World Real Talk my sister from another mister, Sister Alfredia.
Thank you. Who is that person? I mean, that was really great. Thanks for the intro.
Oh, no, listen, you deserve all of it, man. I so appreciate you and your family. You know, man, your husband, I love him to death. He's been like a little brother to me for many years, really, since I got here to Houston. Actually, before you all got together, man, I knew you.
Yeah.
And see you all now, man. I'm just so proud to see what God is doing in you and through you. So tell me about the birth of the Great Coach before we start talking to the Great Coach. Tell us about the birth of the Great Coach.
The Great Coach, and first of all, I want to thank you so much for having me. I am so honored that you would have me on your show, and I'm so serious. I shared this with a couple of people, and they were like, "You're going to be on Cofield's show?" So thank you very much. I'm totally humbled. But with the Great Coach, I about 6 years ago wrote a book, Be Great. I had no plans of writing a book. I was at a conference, a Millionaire Maker conference, and the lady that invited me, we were sitting at a table, and she said, "You have so much that you can give to women." And she was like, "Have you considered writing a book?" And I was like, "A book? No." And it was like there was something that just ignited in me 1 week later. And I began to write. And once I started writing, everything surrounding the book channeled me to live and encourage others to live a life greater than average. So in their prayer life, as a mother, as a parent, in your career, I found that that's what I started to just write about. It was centered around being great and living life above average. And so at that point, I then just kind of started pulling those pieces together. And there you have the Great Coach who started selling books, doing in-services, mostly with schools, because of course that's where I started with teaching. And so I started doing in-services on living a life above average with kids, because we do know, well, at least I learned that in teaching, you always have students, no matter, you could tell them how great they are and what they can be and what they can do with their life, how great they can be on a test, and they will still say, but what if I don't make the 100? What if I don't make the A? Can I miss 2? And so I started saying, you can really be great. You can really make an A. And so anyway, from that point on, I just realized that every part of my being was to really teach and help and magnify people in their mindsets of just average.
Wow. You know, what's absolutely tremendous about what you just said is, and I think there's this idea that great can only be accomplished by a few, and there's not room for the greatness of all of us. And what I hear you saying is, no, every one of us has greatness within us.
That's right.
Is how do we discover it, and how do we allow it to be given birth to, if I can use that term, out of us?
And I'd say that I would tell people, my great is not your great. So what you consider to be great may not be my level of greatness. Wow. So to your point, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. No, I think that's a powerful, powerful concept, that your great may not be my great, but it doesn't make it any less great.
That's right. Absolutely.
So let's talk about 2020. As you have looked at 2020 and have thought about it, I know you're a spirit-filled woman of God. Your husband's a pastor, so you work with people on that side, and then you also work with people. I guess we would use the term on the secular side as well. What has been your take on 2020, and how do you see us needing to move forward in 2021?
Wow. That's a very heavy question, because on the heels of 2020, we know that it was a year that we don't want to remember, but that we will never forget. And I would use the fable of a tree, an oak tree and a willow tree. The oak tree is a strong, powerful tree. And of course, the willow tree would envy the oak tree because it wasn't as strong, it wasn't as sturdy, until the storm came, 2020. And when the storm came, the oak tree, despite the fact that it was really big and heavy, it was not able to maintain under the pressure. And so I just believe that in 2021, those that made it, and thank God, we are here. We're here on the third day. The number of completion, we're here on the third day. We made it. And so we have purpose in the mere fact that we are here. And so we move as the willow tree. It has flexibility. And that's what causes the willow tree to move, to be able to move, because it's flexible. It adjusted. And Lord knows that we had to adjust, Pastor Cofield. You being a pastor, my husband a pastor, I don't know if we ever thought in 2017, 18, 19 that 20 would require us to actually have to go to virtual everything, virtual worship, virtual school. I never in my life thought that I would have kids at home learning through virtual means. But because we're here, we now know that we have to move forward and be forward thinkers, not just complacent. And I guess for me, 2021, and I think this has always been with me, but even more so, is if we would take anything away from our conversation, Pastor Cofield, it would be to be intentional. Everything that we do, every move, and it might sound excessive, it might sound over the top, but everything we do, we must be intentional. I remember someone shared with me about my prayer life. They were giving me a prophecy. And she said to me, be intentional about your prayer time and use your prayer time really as a weapon, but take that time to not let anything else or anybody distract you. And if you have to turn off the phone, turn off the kids, turn off whatever is in the rear view, because you want to be so focused and intentional on where we're going in 2021. So that would be my takeaway, that we have to adjust. We're already there. We must focus and then move intentionally in every aspect of our life.
You know, it's interesting you say that because earlier today, I was listening to somebody talk about what are the keys to being successful. And just reiterating what you just said, one of the things they said was make sure you set an anchor time for whatever you value, whatever's important, and guard that time. So if it is 6 a.m. prayer, using your example, or if it's 7 p.m. meditation, guard that time and treat it as the most important time to your survival, because it will become as important as breathing to you. And
That's absolutely right.
Our norms, a lot of things that we would normally do, you know, from working out in the morning, you know, to, you know, going, meeting friends or whatever the case may be, all of those things got shifted and changed as we moved into 2020. And and you know, some of us have finally, I guess in the last quarter, started making some adjustments, but it's been a challenging time.
In the last quarter, yes.
Yeah. When you finally started dealing with this, okay, this is reality. No, it's not going to end in by Easter. No, it's not going to end by the 4th of July. No, it's not going to end by Labor Day. Okay, you know what? This is like new
there
life.
You go.
This is it. So you better figure out what you're going to do with this. What are some things that you can say to our listening audience today? They hear you every day. And I love hearing your words of inspiration. For those of you who are listeners on KTSU, the great, that's who our guest is on tonight. What are some things that you think we need to get a handle on if we are going to be the best version of ourselves going into 2021?
I think we would need to get a handle on our mindset, because it's about what we think. If you think that you can't move forward in 2021, or even as you said, a lot of us were thinking, okay, by the time Easter gets here, we can go back to life as usual. And I believe we can both be in agreement that life will never be as usual anymore. And so if we can shift our mindset that despite whatever we've gone through, even if some people unfortunately have gone through, oh my God, so many deaths and divorces and a whole bunch of things took place in our lives. But if we have a mindset that we can push beyond the fear, we push beyond being marginal and push beyond ourselves, because ourselves can get in the way. Alfredia is not a tech person, but Alfredia is on a live stream with Dr. Cofield because I had to move beyond myself. So if we can shift our mindsets to really just live a life above average, in every way. I know it might sound cliche-ish, but it is so true. It's about our mindset.
I want us to talk just for a moment about the issue of fear, because
Oh my gosh.
what's interesting to me is so New Year's Eve, you know, I spoke about a new direction for the year, and there are over 530 designated phobias in the English language. And one of the phobias that I thought was interesting, there are a bunch of them. Some of them we're familiar with, like claustrophobia, the fear of being in a confined space, or arachnophobia, the fear of spiders. I jokingly said, you know, my grandmother, she didn't know the word, but she knew the meaning when she told me, you know, boy, you act like you're afraid of work, and that's ergo. She didn't know that fancy word for saying it, but one of the words that I discovered was neophobia, and that's the fear of something new, fear of a new direction, fear of a new course, anything that's new, that people become comfortable with the known old, even if it's bad, as opposed to embracing the possibilities and the opportunities associated with the new. Can you share a little bit why that mindset is so important? Because I look at 2021 and I see it as an opportunity that we've never had before. You know, God says to Joshua, as the children of Israel were about to enter the promised land in Joshua chapter 3, he says, you know, you're going a path that you've never gone on before. But that fear keeps people from really embracing their potential and embracing those possibilities. Why is it important for us to get that mindset, our mindset? Because I love the way you put it. You said, you know, Alfredia can get in her own way, and we are to blame other people and circumstances. Why is it important to look in the mirror to say, hey, what are you going to do about your life?
Because we're honestly, Pastor Cofield, we're our worst enemy. We can get in the way every time. And you talked about how during the pandemic we feared what could or what could not happen. Let me tell you, a lot of people started their own businesses during the pandemic. I was one I had not completed my book. My book is complete because I said, well, and then another thing when I started writing, I was writing for, I guess, more of the traditional learner because of the fear, my personal fear of the technology. And then I realized, well, no, this is not going to work. If I want to really catapult and move really forward, I have to forward think, and I have to release the fear and actually do the work. And so I started writing a book that would allow children to use it with technology. Even my workbook is allowing the kids to work on a computer and not just paper pencil. So it's again shifting your mindset and doing it in a different way. You can't do anything new with the old. You just have to progress and build from where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I tell my children all the time, you know, we try to be the best parents that we can be, but there's no question we all can look back over our lives and say, man, if I could do this different, if I could have said this different.
Yes.
But I always say to them, you know, whatever has happened in your life, you may be able to explain where you were because that happened, but that should not become an excuse for where you stay. That somehow you have to look at it and say, okay, this happened, but I know that now, and here's what I'm going to do to move forward with that. Let's talk a little bit about goal setting. And I want to talk about goal setting as opposed to resolutions, because resolutions have a kind of negative connotation in that, you know, you expect them to fail in the next 6 weeks or so. You know, and typically people set way too many resolutions and really haven't thought through how to accomplish them. Hence, I think the main difference between a goal and a resolution, you know, they make a resolution, that's a statement, but they haven't even thought through the steps necessary to achieve it or reach it, as opposed to a goal where you have to put, you know, action items and steps in place in order to accomplish that. So let's talk about goal setting for 2021.
You're absolutely right. For goal setting, I use 5 letters, and it's just to be smart. The S is to be specific about what it is that you want to do. And then think about the significance. The other S is being, how significant is what you're trying to goal yourself with. And then, of course, the M for SMART would be measurable. How meaningful is what you are goal setting? And then, of course, the A would be how attainable is it? Does it require my actions? I have to put some action into what I'm trying to attain. And then the R on the SMART would be how relevant is it? And then T for SMART would be time bound or trackable. And I said, well, let me share with them how just one component. For me, I would choose faith. Now, you can choose whatever you want, but I chose faith, and I'm going to choose, well, for a specific, under faith, is it my time in my faith? Is it my talent in my faith? Is it my treasure? For me, it would be, of course, my prayer life. So I'm going to be specific with my faith. I'll say prayer. Is that meaningful? Under SMART, yes, it's meaningful. Is it attainable? Is it where I can do it every day? As you said, at 6 o'clock in the morning, if that's the time that I'm going to set, then that's the time that I would put in. And then for under the R for SMART, we would talk about how rewarding is it? How rewarding is it for me to put in time for the Lord, or put in time for my children? Because you could decide, well, I want to put these actions or put these goals to my family or with my future, with my career. I could really, you just under SMART, you can say, is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it relevant? And is it time bound? And you put all of that together and decide on, this is how I'm going to set my goals based on how smart. The S, specific. You're going to be specific on whatever that goal is. Again, M, and that's the teacher in me to repeat. M, you're going to measure it. The A, is it attainable? The R, is it relevant? And the T, you time bound it. Is it trackable?
Now, one of the things that I want to think about, and it just really hit me as you were talking, it's like one of the mistakes that people make. If you just use this acronym, if you just use this acrostic, and you identify something specific or significant that you want to do, something measurable, something meaningful, something attainable, something relevant and realistic, and something time sensitive. If you do that, you don't have a lot of time to try to accomplish a lot of things. It seems like people overcommit themselves and try to do way too much.
Way too much.
as opposed. Am I on track when I say that?
I agree with that. That means that you can't have, as our grandparents used to say, too many irons in the fire.
Yeah.
You have to, So no, you can't overwhelm yourself. Let me say this. I remember when I graduated from Texas Southern and decided that I wanted to do something else. I decided I wanted to teach. And so I started with the ACP program of Houston Independent School District. So it was an accelerated course. So what teachers would have gone to school for 4 years for, I was doing it in 2 years. And for me, it was so overwhelming because it was so much. And I remember the facilitator saying, I know it seems like a lot. She said, but what you need to do is start to benchmark yourself. So you would, as you say, you don't want to do a whole bunch. You just want to stick to maybe 3 things that is most important to you for this year, for 2021. What are the 3 things that's important to you that you need to handle this year? Maybe 3 is too many. Maybe you can just stick with 2.
Yeah.
But I'd rather stick with 2 than have 10 and I barely get 1 done. Right. So I agree. We need to choose 1 and then or 2 and then benchmark yourself and goal yourself, because you could pace yourself and get it done. But you're absolutely right. We cannot do 10 things and try to be smart with it. That's why it talks about being smart.
It's amazing. I'm telling you, as you were talking, I was thinking, man, I know people who have a list of resolutions, 10 or 15 things. They're gonna lose weight. They're gonna write a book. They're gonna get a house. They're gonna get a promotion on their job. They're gonna, you just go down a list, and it's like, look,
But is that really a goal, Pastor? Would that really be a goal, or would it be like a resolution? Which is, with the resolutions, they just kind of fall by the wayside. But when we goal ourselves, we're writing the vision. It's going back to scripture. You write the vision and then you goal yourself on that vision. You don't just let it go. You write it and, okay, that was my resolution. And then that's it.
No, I think you're so spot on. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Real World, Real Talk on your member-supported public radio station, your number 1 source for jazz. We are the choice, KTSU 90.9 on the FM dial and the Real World, Real Talk podcast network. I'm Dr. DZ Cofield. My guest today is the great coach. Alfredia Lee is with me today in the studio virtually, and I'm really grateful and thankful that she is here with us on today. When you talk to individuals and they come to you, one of the things that you talked about is the importance of changing our mindset. How do you start with a person who is suffering from, I guess we would call stinking thinking? The mindset is just not in the right place, because there are so many people who have deceived themselves, and they have a mindset that you just look at and you go, man, it's not a good place to be. Your thought process is not good. How do you started on seeing and getting to where they need to be in order to make positive steps in their life?
Well, and you're right. I've never heard of that term, stinking thinking. But that is so true. And if we always think stinking, it's going to always just flop. There's a fixed mindset and there's a focused mindset. And actually, you can go online and look for it, where you actually take a test and determine, do you have a fixed or a focused mindset? But with the fixed mindset, it allows you to think above your fears. Well, it won't let you think above your fears. When you're focused, it will allow you to think above your fears. And I think that, and I don't know if I I shy away from this, especially because I'm a church kid, by sharing this, but the word is so important to me. I think that when you have positive words of affirmation that you can speak, I know my mom had a fall on last week, and she was so afraid to get up to move because she had fallen. And I said to my mom, I said, okay, well, you have to push past your pain. That means that even though I'm hurting, I'm still going to move. Even though I might have gotten out of a divorce, I have to live outside of divorce. I have to be a great woman, a great single parent. So I started to tell her, I said, Mom, you are going to have to use your faith. Now that word has to kick in. So then I started saying, what are you going to say? Every time you move, you're going to say, I can what? I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Greater is he that is in me, that is in the world. It comes not just with your mindset, but it comes with your words, because there is so much power in our words. If we say we can't, I promise you, you won't be able to do it. I know I am one, and anybody knows me, they know that I have a fear of dogs. I don't know what that they would title that, Dr. Cofield, what name that is. But one day I had to go in a grocery store. I'll never forget. And the dog is sitting. Okay, you get out of the car and you're just making your way into the grocery store, and there is a dog not bothered about Alfredia Lee. But I was so stuck in my stinking thinking, as you would say, that I was afraid to move. And I literally turned back around, got back in my car, and drove to another store. Now that's a fixed mindset. I was so fixated on I'm not going to move forward because there's the dog in front of the store, and the dog was not even thinking about me. So I took up time, I took up gas. But if only I would have said, I'm stronger than that. I can walk in the store. He's not going to bother me. I'm not going to get bitten. Just start talking to. It's about a mindset, and it's about speaking it. You have to speak it. And then, as you start speaking it, and the more you start doing it, the better you'll become at it. And you're like, God, I cannot believe I was really afraid to go inside the store because the dog was there. Or I was really afraid to move. And another thing is, if you don't move, i.e. my mother, then what happens? Your bones, you're sore, you're aching more because you didn't move. So right. Again, pushing past our fear and thinking it, and also speaking it, that matters.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. You said several things there that I'd like to highlight. One is that great can manifest itself anywhere and at any time.
At any place.
That people who may be listening, who may be saying, okay, that's Dr. Cofield talking. That's Alfredia Lee, the great coach, talking. But you may have always had great in you, but you didn't always recognize the great that was in you. And you've literally challenged all of us to think about the fact that, hey, greatness can show up at your address. Greatness can show up in your home. Great can show up in your marriage. You don't have to look at somebody else and hate on them or be envious of them. No, you can have great in your marriage. You can have great in your own home and in your own spirit. The other thing is, this idea that, it's like greatness is a choice, right? Greatness is a choice that we can make. You can choose fear, or you can choose great. And if people, I think, recognize the power within them to choose great. I think about David on that occasion when even his friends turned against him and he had to encourage himself. You know, how do you get to that place, those positive words, images. And I hope somebody's listening on today. I mean, this is January 3rd. So it's still not too late to claim this as part of the new year, you know, that you recognize that great is in you. And it doesn't matter what happened before. It doesn't matter what's going on around you, that you still have the power to give birth to greatness out of you. I want you to talk about those steps a little bit, if you will. And really, I think it's fascinating. There's a whole lot of people who say, I want to write a book, but they haven't written the first word. And I always tell people, hey, if you want to write a book, why don't you start with writing an article? You know, maybe an article is the way to get you started, and then submit that article. And if you do 10 articles, then guess what you have?
You have a book.
You know, and you know, you eat an elephant and a hamburger the same way, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Talk about your journey to great. And I know you're still on that journey. I know it's still.
I am.
but talk about that initial step, what you had to work through and walk through in order to get to the place where you could embrace great as your friend.
Well, I had to, again, I hate to repeat this again, but somebody needs to hear that you have to move yourself out of the way. And another thing that you said, I can't recall, I was going to write it and I didn't want to be distracted with it, but sometimes we don't know the greatness that we have on the inside. Sometimes someone will recognize that greatness on the inside of you. And when you were speaking, I remember Pastor Lee and I had gone to hear you in revival one night. And you said, don't worry about everybody else's grass. Don't look at other people's marriages. Don't look at other people's careers and whatever that it is. Water your own grass. So I had to move Alfredia out the way because typically I'm very, very hard on myself. And I have to get around people who will hold me accountable. So at one point, as you said, some people say, well, you're going to write the book. I had no idea. I didn't know how to write a book in my mind. And so someone said, just start writing. As you said, write a few articles, but just start writing. If it's even losing weight, just start one day at a time. You can't get the whole loaf. You start with the baby steps. If it's losing weight, today, this one day, I'm going to be great at counting my calories. This one day, I'm going to be great at working out. This one day, I'm going to be great at managing my points. So it's really talking yourself through it, walking yourself through it, and allowing people to also hold you accountable. I remember telling my book coach, I said, I don't really want to tell people that I'm writing a book. And she said, well, why not? She said, because when you tell them, then they're going to say, well, when is your book coming out? and she was right. So when I started to tell them this is what I'm going to do, then in the back of my mind, I have to do it. So I started holding myself accountable.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we have to do with greatness. Hold yourself accountable because nobody else is going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And think big. Don't think small. Don't think like, well, I'm just gonna whatever it is that you put it in a little small box. It's okay to think big. It's okay to be great. Greatness just means that I'm above average. That's all that means. I'm above average. My students, I used to tell them, you can, and I said this before, I alluded to it. You can, you have the chart A, B, C, D, and F. And I would say in the middle is average. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be on the end of great, or do you want to be on the end of poor? What side? Or you want to be right there in the middle? And honestly, most of the children, and you can try it out on your kids or group of students, they will lean toward the part where it will not require so much of them. If it requires a lot of people don't want to put in the work, but you have to put in the work. It's not going to just happen. That would be great. I know during the Christmas season, I would see on social media, people would say, now, Alexa, take down the Christmas tree. That would be so wonderful if Alexa could take down the Christmas tree. But we have to put in the work. It's a mindset, and we have to go in the trenches.
Yeah. No, you're right. That would be really, really sweet. And
yes, it would be beautiful.
Yeah. So as you move into this year and you are coaching people, because I thought it was interesting when you talked about you have a writing coach. So I want to take that as a metaphor for the rest of our time. I want you to talk to our audience about the importance of having positive people speaking into your life and people who are encouraging great to come out of you. Because I was thinking, as you were talking as a school teacher, when kids go home and they have great beat out of them, or they have people who don't see greatness in themselves, so they don't see great in anybody else, they need somebody to see that, encourage that. Talk about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who see great and encourage great out of you.
When you talked about children not hearing it, my mind went back to when I was going to school to become a teacher. And I remember so clearly the facilitator said, what you bring to your classroom, imagine that the child will go back home, whatever you gave them, if it was positive, if it was negative, whatever you gave them, when they get home, they put that in rewind and they press play. And everything that you sowed into them is what they bring back up. And so I would say that even for our friends, and not just friends, but relationships, because some people are going even into relationships with a significant other that is not so positive, and they're sowing in a lot of negativity into them. You have so many women. I talk to so many women who have settled in, and there are some men as well, but who have settled into what is safe because they're afraid to come out of that comfort zone. They're afraid to really live life and live it in a way that is empowering for them. So I'm encouraging you, those that are listening today, if you don't receive anything else, I want you to receive today that the people that are connected to you, they matter. The things that they're sowing into you, it matters. You want to surround yourself with so much greatness that is what's going to come out of you. If you hear negative, if you think negative, if you speak negative, that's what's going to come out. If you speak positive, if you speak, I'm getting my house this year. That's what I'm getting this year. I'm getting my degree this year. And not just speaking it, but putting action to it.
Right.
That's
I think
what
that's
I'm going to do. Because
right.
you can say all day long,
Right.
that would be me. I'm going to lose the weight this year. And I'm right there at Baskin Robbins. I'm right there at Marble Slab. Those are my two favorite places. But I can say this, I have been so disciplined because I made it up in my mind that I wanted to see something different. Yeah. And I wanted to not only see something different, but I wanted to feel different. Because when you start making those strides and you start seeing how, whatever it is, in my situation, it would be the weight. And you see the inches falling off. You're like, wow, okay, she doing it. Yeah. Come on, Alfredia, you're doing the thing, girl. You can do it. That's where your friendships matter and your relationships matter. And even with your children, I just want to speak this into our children, our parents. Start speaking it into your children, telling them that they're great. They've heard enough negative from the world. They've heard enough negative from other friends and on social media. They've gotten the cyberbullying. They've heard enough of that. So let's start speaking those things even into our children. But yes, friendships. We want to make sure that the friendships that we have are healthy. The friendships that we have. And how do we know that they're healthy? How do we know that they're healthy? We know that they're healthy when we're producing some things in a positive way from those friendships. But if you're always hearing negative from friends, there's a scripture that says, lay aside every weight. That includes friendship. And look, now is a good time to get rid of anything. January 3rd, now is a good time to get rid of anything or anyone that is not healthy for your growth as an individual, your growth as a spiritual person, your growth as a parent, your growth as a husband, your growth as a wife, your growth as a citizen.
Yeah.
So yeah, friendships matter.
Well, listen, our time has gone by so fast, and
no. This has been fun.
Well, listen, this is what I need you to do. Please promise me that you'll come back and talk to us again.
I will, and thank you so much again for having me. I want to say,
tell our listening audience how they can get in touch with the Great Coach.
The Great Coach can be followed on any social media platform, on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. On Facebook, you can follow me on Alfredia Lee, but you can also follow me on The Great Coach. And then, of course, on Twitter and Instagram, Alfredia Lee. And then my email is, website is www.leadthegreatcoach.com.
Well, listen, I appreciate the Great Coach taking time to help us in our greatness today. I really do. You've shared some things that I hope our listening audience will take to heart. And if they didn't get it all, I pray that they would make sure that they get a copy of the podcast and come back on and get their pad and pencil. Thank you so much, though, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Great New Year.
You too. And make sure you tell your husband and your baby girl. You know, she came to the studio that time. I was trying to figure out who that grown woman was. I was like,
that's Kennedy Lee. She's my producer. She's a college student now.
Wow, that's amazing. All right. Well, take care.
Thank you so much for having me.
The late Vernon John said, if you see a good fight, get in it. I always add, if you don't see a good fight, start one. And there's no better time to engage in the battle than the first of the year. And there's nothing more important worth fighting for than your own sanity, than your own spirit, than your own well-being. The Great Coach, I think, said it well, that you've got to change your mindset. And my hope and my prayer is that this year will be your year, because this is the year you're going to change your mindset. You're going to change your thinking. And if you need help, then go to counseling or get a good friend that's going to be honest with you, that's not going to affirm you in your silliness or in your bad thinking, but somebody's going to tell you the truth and make the changes that you need to make. You ever seen anybody who was wearing like the craziest outfit, and you might look over at a friend and say, you know what, they don't have any friends, right? Because if they had a real friend, their friend would say, no, you don't want to wear that, right? Well, guess what? You need that kind of friend to help you in your thinking, in your mindset. So I want to encourage you, do your part to be the best you can be this year, because there's great in you. And the only person that can keep great from coming out of you is you. So get out of your own way and let greatness be given birth to out of your life. This is Dr. DZ Cofield. You're listening to Real World, Real Talk on The Choice 90.9 KTSU. Take care and God bless.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real World, Real Talk. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes every week. Follow us via social media using the @RWRTDZ username on all platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To submit any comments, questions, sponsor opportunities, or future show suggestions, visit us online at rwrtdz.com or via email at info@rwrtdz.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope you've been inspired to be the change you want to see in the world today. Until next time, be real, keep it real, and stay real.